Welcome back to the Worst Latin Names series. Are you excited? Yes, you are. Over a year ago, I took a survey of almost 400 people to determine the worst, best, and favorite Latin name in all of biology. And those results will be revealed after all the new entries I've acquired have been covered. I'm kidding. You voted the worst to be Mexicacus Shanvarpulquingilgogari the ball of mucus from Shanvarpulquingilgogari The best Latin name was, unfortunately, Hot Wheels Sisyphus. I was sitting on this data for so long because I was hoping it would change eventually, but it never did. Oh well, Zool Crew Revastator, Zool Destroyer of Shins, came in a close second. So if that's all you were interested in, you can leave. Alright, let's move into the new entries. We start with easily mockable names, just disappointing and insulting names. First off is Petrolisthes elongatus, the long slippery rock. Slippery Rock is a city in Pennsylvania, I guess. Also, Petrolisthes species aren't even true crabs. We also have P. pubescens, the pubescent slippery rock. Of course, pubescens just means ripe or mature, but whatever. Next is Partula nodosa, named after the Roman goddess of childbirth, which there are not only one of, there are hundreds. Partula is specifically the goddess of the moment the baby comes out, and she's also one of the fates, so her job is to assign when the baby is going to die. I translate it as Knobbly goddess of childbirth. Next up is Anilia Cytile, the cylinder that looks like an old woman. I would even go so far as to say that it doesn't really look like either of them. Heterandria formosa is the different beautiful man. On top of not being a man, it's not hard to misinterpret the prefix hetero to mean beautiful straight man. Boa constrictor is the boa constrictor. I guess it's kind of a letdown. Similarly, the ebony bog haunter, which you may remember from the best common name video, its Latin name is Williamsonia fletcheri, both named after humans, and can be translated as Fletcher Williamson. There are a couple of butt-related entries, none of which trump last year's, but we have Chaetopterus pugaporcinus, the bristly-winged pig butt, Sinorta clunapectin, the dog with a butt comb, and Pigarctia angelus, the bear butt angel. Hexaplex duplex is Greek for 6'2". Hey, at least it's not hexaplex heptaplex. But of course I couldn't resist, so here's family Hexanchidae into genus Heptranchius, Hex Hepta. Lagonamico conclucatus is kind of the flattened pancake monkey, though A, this should be Concolcatus, B, this should be Lagonamico, and C, Mico refers to one specific relative of tamarins. Pelicanus occidentalis is the western pelican. Notable subspecies include the urinating western pelican. Phagomixa algarum is the snot-eater algae. The top three from this category are Rhizanthes infanticida, the child-murdering root flower, because it kills fly larvae laid in it. Maybe that conjures up images of some mysterious villain, but child murdering isn't exactly aura. They're pretty easy to kill. It's like taking life from a baby. Okay, next up is Charaproctus dubius, the dubious butt face. A comment suggested Charaproctus comicus, which is not a real species. I assume they meant Charaproctus comus, which means the festival butt face, but it's a very diverse genus if you want to take a look. And finally, we have Hyomora porcella. Hyo means U-shaped, Y is Greek for you, which feels like a strange thing to say, but it's technically true. Mora, I believe, is from Mora with an omicron, which is a military formation, but it could be Mora with an omega, which is the origin of moron. Of course, that's the feminine form, but whatever. Oh yeah. And porcella means pussy. Sorry, there's probably nicer ways to translate that, but I feel like that's the most accurate. It's not a nice word, and that transitions nicely into the next section, Phallic and Yonic names. To finish off that category, we have Streetzia porcella, the pussy of the streets, and Peniagoni porcella. This, as you can imagine, means penis is gone, or rather the exact opposite of that. Gonopenia would really make more sense, but whatever. But, like God himself in the act of creation, I will start with the male. So, we already covered a lot of the best penis entries, but there's Verpa penis, that kind of rounds everything out. It means penis. It's not a mushroom, it just looks like one. On the less elegant side, we have Morrisonia cynophalophora, which means Morrison's dog penis carrier. In the male adjacent category, we have Atractogyne bracteata, the gilded woman attractor. In the gender neutral category, we have Rectotormentum fornicatum. Fornicatum just means art-shaped in Latin, but Rectotormentum does mean rectum torture. And completely opposite men, we have Cuterebra emasculator, the emasculating skin boar, named after the fact that it eats squirrels' testicles, which it doesn't actually do, but we'll get to that later. And now, over to the lady bits, which I have more of now. Meritrix lusoria pretty plainly translates as the recreational prostitute. This same genus also includes Meritrix horny, named after George Horn, one of the discoverer's friends. Moving down into the nipples, which I guess men also have, but mama is kind of a feminine word. First is Theobroma mimosum, the food of the gods with breasts. Breast-shaped is actually pretty common just because it's pretty normal for things to be shaped like a big circle with a little dot. So the best I could find are Trematosphæria mammiformis, the breast-shaped ball with a hole in it. Melanoma mammiforme, the black visage shaped like a breast, could maybe be in a different category because it sounds so similar to melanoma. And Lactarius mimosus is just breast milk. Moving down to the uterus, we have Pianus menstruus, the menstruating plump one. Now, Zinniop, you may rightly point out, doesn't menstruus just mean relating to months or the lunar cycle? Well, down into the vulva, we have Chenopodium vulvaria, the vulva-ish goosefoot. Apparently it's not named because it looks like a vulva, it is in fact named after the fact that it smells like a bacterially imbalanced vulva. On the less explicit side, we have Catastomus fecundus, which can be reasonably translated as reproductive lower opening, which I think gets a few more points for subtlety, but it's also been synonymized with C. ardens, which still kind of works, and Thetis vagina is nymph's sheath, which sounds like a bit of a euphemism and also has vagina in the name anyways, which segues nicely into our next section, names that sound funny in English. I formerly derided this section for including boring entries like Dickinsonia. I apologize, it turns out this section gets so much funnier the harder it is to figure out the real etymology. So, we'll start with Platymerus bigitatus. To be clear, the correct gloss of this is bi and gutatus, meaning two-spotted femur, enema pan, which means every injection, and colon rectum, which in theory means straight segment. Distorsio anus means distorted ring, scabies crispata means curved scrapes. This wasp, which I identified in the last video as peace in you, is apparently meant to be pronounced piss on you. Oh well, we'll file it with Gelibine. The genus Mangina was separated from Argina, which meant the bright ones. I assume this prefix mang or man is derived from an Indian language, or perhaps in reference to Manginapudi, a beach in Andhra Pradesh. Next up, behold the Concavinator. Again, the gloss is Conca venator, the valley hunter, but I find it funny that it is probably the most convex dinosaur there is. The mime taster is meant to be Mimetaster, the six-sided star mimic. Also, it looks like how I imagine Rocky from Project Hail Mary. Galicious Bacca... Let me try that again. Galisacea baccata means Guy Lussac's berries. Pantidraco caducus is from Welsh and it means fallen into the hollow of dragons. Botryotinia fucaliana means feels grape disease. A lot of these, as you can see, are just me making fun of French names. Next up is Futulonchosaurus duki. Now, let's ignore Futa. Let's ignore Dookie. Logunk. So this word is Mapudungun, an indigenous language of Argentina. My assumption is that Spanish obviously didn't have a spelling for ng, so instead of just writing it as nk, which everyone would have read as nk, they decided to use the palatal version based on the Italian ñ sound, and that gives loink. And now that we aren't ignoring Fudo or Dookie, we can appreciate how awful this name is. In a similar but much nicer boat, we have Saxicolella futa, the Fulba stone resident. I couldn't find an etymology for Ligmargus depressus, though shrill depressed sin makes sense. I guess Losaria Koon means the united unit from Losary. We will get to other poorly aged names later. In the meantime, Certodactylus australotitiwangsaensis is curved fingers from southern Titiwangsa, which is a mountain range in Malaysia. Similarly, Heteropod goon on a man is named after a mountain in Australia. You may have noticed that this category is called Sounds Funny in English, but it really sounds inappropriate in English, so I'll round it out with Quidius goon. I also could not find an etymology for that one. It's just Quidius. Quidius goon. Next up would be recursive names, but that got old, so I'm replacing this category with wrong names. Anguis fragilis is the fragile snake, Megalobatrachus japonicus is the giant frog from Japan, Coluber constrictor is the constrictor snake, Chiropus ecaudatus means pig feet with no tail, Hematopus unicolor is the one-colored bloodfoot, and it's also literally called variable. Similarly, Fregata minor is the small frigate bird, and Arctocephalus tropicalis is the tropical bearhead. For the botany nerds, Myanthemum racemosum is the raceme-forming mother flower. Ichthyaitis melanocephalus means means the black-headed fish eagle. Croikocephalus ridibundus means laughing colored head. Leucophius atricilla is the black-tailed white-gray. Goals are messed up. Mustelus antarcticus is the Antarctic weasel, and finally Lactifluus non-piscus is flowing milk and not a fish. You know what? Sure. Next up is the category of funny stories, stuff that makes you go, oh, that's cool, but not really the worst or best in any case. First up is Macrocarpia dies viridis. Yes, it means Green Day's big fruit, but also you can put a hyphen in a Latin name? Since when? Similarly, we have Zestia C. nigrum, the polished black C. Why not just use Hio again? U's and C's are shaped the same. Don't worry though, the common name is named after a different letter, the Hebrew Nun. Its common name is the cetaceous Hebrew character. What is up with this moth? Anyway, Anolis pogus means pogos and all. Who's Pogo? Oh, a cartoon character. Normally I wouldn't care, but apparently the scientists just wanted to prove that Latin names don't matter, and that made me so mad I added it to the list. Next up is Sobral's white and yellow one, Sobralia leucoxantha. Not to be confused with Sobral's yellow and white one, Sobralia xantholuca. Alphabetically, the first genus is Abba from last video. Behind that is Adonta, which was named to be the first. So, swing and a miss. There are more clamoring for last place. Zizix, Ziziva, Zizigidon, Zizizus, and Zizixdonta are all generic names. No, I do not care enough to pull a species out from them. Suffice it to say, all of you suck, and when they discover a species of wasps and call it Zinniopia, you will all fall behind. Venata includes 3 species that are all acronyms of Venata. It also includes a couple more that aren't, which kind of ruins it, and there's one left, but it's not really a big one. In fact, it's probably a minor. I think I made this list when Not Like Us was still floating fresh in people's minds. Weird words is next. This is tongue twisters, tongue straighteners, and things that mean something in English, but not something specifically funny or inappropriate. In fact, Hakuna Matata, camera lens, pizzeria, funny Valentine, and habeas corpus don't mean anything in Latin. Well, habeas corpus does, but it means the same in Latin and English. Disappeari does actually have a meaning, which is something like to ruin or waste, but it also has disappear. That's how you do it. Similarly, Theria, which is a word for destruction, had a species called Theria relativity, which I love. Reanalysis placed it in the genus Poikilognathes, but oh well, its heart will go on. Omaya, and Tomoya Oboya both do a poor job of pretending to be ahaha from 2 videos ago. Upopa Epops is named after 2 languages names, both of which are derived from the sound it makes, and guess what, so is English. Salaka Zalaka has a name, I guess. It's derived from the Malay name for the fruit, twice, once with a different starting consonant. Abadeftuf is somehow Arabic for the one with prominent sides. On to the tongue twisters. Clostridides difficile means the difficult spindle-looking one. Prometheoarchaeum syntrophicum is the earliest of the beginning that eats together. Chenchisaurus nedigoapiferima is heavenly pool lizard. The specific epithet nedigoapiferima, for the record, I probably could try to pronounce that like one word, but I don't think it deserves that. It's derived from the names of the 8 stars of Jurassic Park. Also, how come David only gets 1 letter and everyone gets 2? To be fair, though, I don't think that family is lacking for species named after them. Finally is Tierskiahanach. I'm pretty sure I got that right, just because I don't really find it funny when someone has trouble pronouncing a foreign name, but wow, that sucks and it looks awful, and all that just to mean winged lizard. But let's get some species cancelled. Next up is the species that aged poorly, named after people who turned out to be undeserving, and a lot has happened since last year, so we kick it off with Heliopodes Elon Muskie. I'm pretty sure no matter which side of the aisle you're on, you'll agree Elon Musk has spent the last year proving himself to be an unreliable, greedy, self-serving, and generally a disgusting pig of a man. I'm sure the butterfly is nice, though. Similarly, I'd like to add an addendum to the Donald Trump species. I dismissed these last time. My reasoning was that the people who named a species after, like, Ellen, they named it after the Be Kind lady, and when she came out as a prick, they would have regretted that. The people who named the Trump species named it after a guy who owns the libs, and they loved it when he owns the libs. I'd like to amend that logic, not to get political, but if by now you can't see that Trump is not only a morally repellent person, but an awful, corrupt, and treasonous leader, then you're either willfully ignorant, or you're just as wicked as he is. Anyway, yeah, I'm throwing in Neopalpa and Tetragramma with the bad species. Hoya Indesiree is named after a politician from the Philippines. I haven't done any research, but she's a politician from the Philippines, so I don't know why they decided that pick would age well. Kootenikola Deppy is named after Johnny Depp. I made this first video after the trial, but I feel like it's only recently that we've been coming around to the fact that most of the people rooting for Johnny Depp fell for a pretty nasty propaganda campaign. Maybe it's just my OCD that over-encourages me to believe victims, but I mean, if someone accused me of something, I'd be like, maybe they got a point. My memories could be playing tricks on me. Anyway, for those reasons, I'm adding back in Hilo Skirtus Seth MacFarlane and Lumiaria Woody Allen. Nemaspis Jackie E and Acrotaphis Jackie Channy are named after Jackie Chan, who is famous for abandoning his daughter of an affair, and also he pivoted to a pretty hard pro-CCP stance a few years back. Over to some people who never should have had a name in the first place, we have Hibertia, a genus named after an Australian settler who was very pro-slavery. He gave like hour-long addresses about why Parliament needed to keep slavery going. The marsh rabbit has a subspecies named after Hugh Hefner, who, I mean, everything he did was very much a product of misogyny, right? Trichopelma Fidel Castro, I don't know, maybe. Some people still like him. Guevara too, which is why I'm keeping his species out of this. Nano Cthulhu Lovecrafty. I don't really know how he was perceived at the time, but I know right now he's known like 50% for his writing and 50% for the name of his cat. Strucia Epsteini is not what you think. It's named after Brian Epstein. He was the manager for the Beatles, but still it is not a good name. Funko Tripleginium Yagobadius means something like James Brown's Three Funky Women. He seems like a nice guy, I guess, but also, wow, this is a convoluted tribute to him. Yago can also mean Jack or Jacob. Why not just call it James Brownie, like every other specific name? Whatever. Hottentotta is a scorpion. This word is just a slur nowadays. There's been some pushback to fix it. Similarly, Caphra, which shows up quite a lot, is also named after a slur. All the plants with that specific epithet switched over to Afra a while back, but animals are still chugging along. Boy, this section was a lot more depressing than last time. So we'll finish off quickly with the best Latin names. Endocerus giganteum means the giant in a horn. That just struck me as pretty cool. Similarly, Hylobates Moloch is the devil walking through a forest. Acinonyx means immobile claws, which is a cool genus, but if you want a species to match it up with, then you'll find you just got debated. Over to some mythological greats, we have Dynasties Hercules, which is Lord Heracles, Satanist Shah, King Satan, and Thanatos Draken Amaru, the fatal dragon of the death god. Both of these are death gods in different mythologies. Other dragons are Cryodraken Boreas, the northern ice dragon, and Mei Long, the sleeping dragon. Moving up a tier, we have Eutyrannus Hua Li, the beautiful feathered tyrant, and Hallucigenia Fortis, the mighty dream maker. That guy from last video wasn't kidding, the Lobopodians don't miss. Tyrannosaurus Rex, the tyrant lizard king, probably deserves a mention, as does Tyrannochthonius Rex, the tyrant earth king. If it wasn't for the panties, I would say Fallen into the Hollow of Dragons is pretty good, but the pronunciation still just ruins it. Fortunately, Messer-Caducus, the fallen reaper, takes up the epithet just fine. Moros Intrepidus is a bit hard to translate succinctly, but I went with Dauntless Fate. Maybe Dauntless Impending Doom, but this is good enough. Pyrops Oritus is gold-plated fire eyes, and this one you'll see later in the worst common name bracket part 2. But in this video, my pick for the winner is Carissa Hematocarpa, the artist's bloody fruit. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.